Coming on stage is the popular and incredible idol group B Komachi. Ichiro Amemiya, a superfan, watches enthusiastically, paying close attention to his all-time favorite 16-year-old Ai Hoshino. As he invests himself in the DVD, he gets interrupted by the nurse who scolds him for watching DVD concerts in a patient's room. The nurse breaks the news that Ai is going on hiatus, and this makes Ichiro burst into tears. She teases him by saying he is into those pop idols, but he argues that he had a good reason. As it happened, when he was younger, one of his patients couldn't stop talking about Ai and her group. She even shared her dreams of being reborn as the child of an idol, but Ichiro wouldn't even entertain such bizarre thoughts. Some months after, the girl named Serena died of an illness, and so he decided to honor her by supporting her favorite idol. Of course, the nurse sees through this convenient excuse easily. Back inside, he goes to attend to a pregnant patient who, after closely looking, finds out is his idol Ai. Her manager, posing as her father, inquires worriedly about her condition, but Ai puts on a vibrant attitude. Ichiro immediately leaves the room, and finally has a moment to express his shock at meeting his idol face to face. More importantly, suddenly seeing her pregnant leaves him in shock. From the examination, Ai learns that she is carrying twins. Since she is under his agency, the manager called Saito doesn't want a scandal that'll ruin his business, so they begin weighing their options. However, Ichiro keeps his opinions professional. Later, Ai bumps into him on the roof and reveals he knows she is an idol despite her efforts to hide it. He then asks if she will quit being an idol, but she reveals that she plans to give birth secretly and continue being an idol while also secretly raising a family. Just another lie added to the fake life of being a celebrity. Seeing her confidence, he swears to help her deliver safely and safeguard her happiness, both as a fan and a doctor. When her due date finally arrives, Ai gets ready for the delivery process while Ichiro goes out to wait for the call. On his way, he encounters a stalker who asks him about Ai's situation. The stalker makes a run for it, having been found out, but Ichiro gives him a chase into the woods. However, he gets lost near a cliff and the stalker pushes him off to his death. In his last moment, he watches as his phone rings, and then his life begins to flash before his eyes. A memory, Serena's voice talking about being reborn, becomes the last thing in his head before he dies. Well, he didn't die, since he gets reincarnated as one of Ai's twins named Aquamarine. Ai Hoshino gave birth and has now become a mother. His second twin, a girl named Ruby, begins crying, but apparently, Ai can't tell her kids apart since she is bad at recognizing people. Saito arrives to discuss his plans to get her back on stage. He reveals his plan involves his wife, Miyako, looking after her twins while she works. When Ai thinks about taking the children out with her, Saito snaps at her for thinking a thought that might ruin both their careers. He then adds that as far as the public is concerned, the kids are his and she is just babysitting them. While Ai goes to work, Aqua watches her live on TV as she nearly talks about having kids in an interview. When it's time to shoot, the producers and crew don't think much about the group, with some remarking that they are a below average group. However, when Ai takes the lead, her performance becomes an explosion that stuns everyone, including Aqua, who watches in blissful adoration. As he watches while being grateful for being reborn, Ruby wakes up and as it turns out, she was also reborn, and in her past life was also a super fan of their mother. It was so obvious as he once caught her engaging trolls and haters online, and her non-stop rant about Ai's awesomeness never ends. Meanwhile, the stalker finds out Ai managed to put to bed, and this breaks him severely. That night, Ai tries to feed Aqua, but he refuses out of morals, leaving Ai to wonder why he loves his bottle so much. On the other hand, Ruby takes full advantage of her opportunity, rubbing it on Aqua's face any moment she gets. Unfortunately, talking is all they can do, and Ruby soon needs a diaper change. Miyako gets frustrated about how she became a babysitter all of a sudden. She begins throwing a fit and finally snaps. She then begins planning on using the kid's scandal to fuel her popularity. As she takes the evidence, the twins decide to take matters into their own hands. Aqua talks to her, impersonating a spiritual being. But the shock of a baby talking leaves her dumbfounded and confused. Ruby, in the confusion, manages to salvage the situation by playing along with the possession act. She reveals it is Miyako's destiny to help Ai out, and if she doesn't, she would perish. When she adds that there's a chance for her to have a happily ever after with a handsome actor, Miyako vows to dedicate her all to care for them. A few months after her return, the expected bounty the agency was supposed to experience never happened, and Ai is left with so little pay despite her hard work. She reveals she wants to make sure her kids have the best life, and such pay certainly wouldn't cut such a dream. After she leaves for practice, they inquire why Ai isn't getting job offers and endorsements, so Miyako explains that marketing an idol group is too complicated. And on the other hand, the possibility of a solo idol success is extremely low, and most people don't make it. During the next show, the twins manage to convince Miyako to let them out of the house. Although they get VIP spots, they must behave like actual children. The concert commences and Ai and her group's performance gets the audience incredibly thrilled. However, two superfans from the crowd begin cheering so hard that even the performers paused in awe. Afterward, clip of the twins go viral, acquiring over 2 million views in a short time. A year later, and the twins have grown enough to openly walk and talk. However, Ruby sometimes goes overboard with her phrases, leaving Ai puzzled by her genius. By this time, Ai has grown in fame a little more and is even about to feature in a movie. On arriving at the studio, the intense director scolds Miyako for bringing kids to the set. However, he doesn't make a fuss and just lets it go. There are adorable kids on set, and everyone wants to pat them. While Ruby can't get enough, Aqua escapes the crowd, only to bump into the director in the hallway. Before he snaps again, Aqua begins talking excessively in hopes of getting in his good graces, but the director is more astonished by his vocabulary. He gets so impressed that he advises Aqua to go into acting. Aqua refuses, asking the director to pay attention to Ai instead. So, the director explains that the possibility of her thriving in the industry is low. After the filming, Ai reveals she used the trick to make herself look cuter, so she's confident she'll nail the role. A few days later, when the show is to finally air, only one of her scenes makes it on the TV. This angers Aqua so much that he calls the director immediately. Unfortunately, he reveals that the lead actress's agency deemed Ai a competition, and so they cut her part a lot so their star could shine more. On hearing the disappointment in Aqua's voice, the director decides to star Ai in another film, but with the condition that he also plays a part. At the set of the new film, Aqua suggests his sister might be a better actor, but the director doesn't fancy the idea. It turns out his casual way of talking he took from his previous life made the director take a liking to him. During prep, Ruby cries shamelessly for her mother, and this makes a child actress called Kana Orima to confront them. On seeing her, Ruby expresses distaste for her attitude, and she was right. Kana soon starts talking down on their mother's bad acting, and they both restrain themselves from devouring her. During their scene together, Kana stays true to her script. Meanwhile, Aqua decides to act casually, as that was what the director expected of him. He plays the role so perfectly, everyone but Kana acknowledges his genius. She bursts at the director to retake the scene since Aqua did better than her, and in the end, she ends up being restrained. Later, the director revealed how Kana had been acting egotistically and racking up hate from the crew members, so she needed to be humbled. Sometime after, the director's film became popular due to the flawless acting of Aqua and Ai especially. After that success, Ai's career took a more possible turn, and she began getting more gigs. Meanwhile, it turns out Aqua's previous body was still missing, and making news articles. In that sense, he decides to ask about Ruby's previous life, but the thought of Aqua taking advantage of his sure seniority makes her dismiss the question. When it's time for dancing at the preschool, Ruby runs away. It turns out that in her past life, she was Serena, the sickly girl who was never able to dance because of her health. Of course, Aqua doesn't know this, but he tries to motivate her. That night, she tries to dance secretly, but still can't. Even when Ai tries to help, she easily trips like she was prepared to fall. Soon, with proper guidance, she lets go of the fear from her previous life, and gives herself to the flow just like Ai. Some days later, Ai suddenly contacts her ex and the father of the twins in hopes that he'll like to see them. That evening, they all hang out with the director, who is super excited that Ai is finally going to perform in a dome, the grandest stage there is for an idol. Given the hard work Miyako put into securing the place, Ai makes sure to act excited, even though she doesn't really care. Just thinking about her lies, she recalls how the director scouted her despite her sad background and attempts at explaining how unlovable she was. As it happened, he was the one that taught her that it's okay to lie as an idol, and the habit now eats into her so deeply, she thinks professing her love for the twins might turn out to be a lie. On the morning of the Dome concert, she goes excitedly to answer the door, only to be stabbed by the stalker fan who rants about how Ai betrayed her fans by having kids. As she stands in pain, holding her bloodied abdomen, Ai smiles at him, while revealing her lies were the only way to express the love she had. Even though it was a lie, it might one day become true. When she recognizes him, she utters his name and he snaps and runs away. Aqua watches as Ai lives her last moments, and Ruby can only look from behind the door while her mother utters her last words to them. She finally tells them she loves them before the light fades from her eyes. Soon after the news of her death was released, and while some grieved, Ruby slowly gives into despair as she reads ill comments about her dead mother on the internet. Moving on, the director and Miyako adopt the twins, and they begin trying to lead a normal life. While Ruby thinks about becoming an idol, Aqua's mind runs through the past events. How could the culprit possibly pinpoint the hospital location where he was killed previously, as well as Ai's hotel? Finally, he concludes that it must be their father, and so, a path to revenge is born. Years later, the twins are now in high school, and Aqua has perfected his plan of revenge. That's all for today's anime recap. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. See you next time.